Hello, everybody. So I am here with another author to interview, Daniel. Um,
Right.
so we're going to be talking about his books. Do you want to say a little bit of something about yourself first?
Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm an Australian author who lives in Queensland, and I mostly write detective fantasy fiction. So here I am. Hello.
Nice. So are you ready to get into the questions?
Yes.
Okay. Question one: What's your WIP about? If it's a sequel, you can talk about the overall story, including previous books.
Yeah. Well, my current whip is Flames of Doubt, which is a sequel to my previous book, A Pinch of Distrust. It sort of follows on in that it's a consequence of the events of book one of A Pinch of Distrust. In I'll call it Distrust just for brevity purposes. In Distrust, what happens is that, well, one of the murderers turns out to be a mage at the local college of mages, and he's arrested and tried and sentenced, obviously. And then in at the beginning of Flames, the chief mage at the College of Mages comes to my main character and says, "I saw how you investigated that case. I want you to help me pick the replacement mage to make sure that I don't hire another murderer." So it's a detective, it's a whodunit fantasy. So, of course, there is going to be a murder. While the recruitment and assessment of the candidates is happening, a fire breaks out at the college, and one of the candidates dies during it. Except in the aftermath, my main character, who is a fairy named Yetherum, finds evidence that the fire may have been deliberately set, and that the candidate who died may not have died as a result of the fire. And the investigation sort of runs from there. And
Interesting.
yeah, so yeah, basically the approach that I take with each of my stories is that even though there's sort of character development for each of them, each book is a sort of murder of the week type story.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, it definitely sounds pretty good.
Thanks.
Question two: What is your MC like?
Well, yeah, Therum, he's a fairy, so about 12 inches tall. He's got flora elemental magic. Personality wise, he's a snarky, manipulative fellow who is very fun to write. He's his stock in trade is being what I call economical with the truth. So he's not going to lie to manipulate people, but he's not going to tell them the full truth either. Like
Hmm.
there's one example in Distrust where he knows that this person's having an affair and he needs to flush them out because he thinks they can provide a clue to who the murderer is. So he tells them that they found love letters, but he doesn't say that they found his name on the love letters. And then when they go to run to warn their lover, Etheron's able to follow them and sort of get his clues that way.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely sounds like a fun character to write and read.
Oh yes. Yes, and with his magic as well. So it's flora. It's elemental magic in my series. So he's what I call a flora kind. So he can manipulate plants and make them grow, that sort of thing. And that actually influences his appearance as well. The fairies in my stories, they actually take on aspects of their appearance based on their magic. So he's got, like, green hair, green eyes, sort of bark brown skin, and sort of that sort of furry texture you get on the outer shell of a coconut.
I've never had a coconut in real life, but
Okay.
I can
Well,
get
the
the
sort of,
idea.
yeah, sort of coconut shell texture on his wings. So
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I like that their appearance is similar to their magic. I like that.
Yeah.
Question three: What are your other important characters like?
Well, as well as Yetherum, I have about six other core characters who I've developed. They're going to be major supporting characters in Yetherum's stories, and they'll also get some stories of their own as well. So there's three humans and three fairies, and the main common factor between each of them is that they all want to do the right thing, but their definition of what the right thing is different. For example, one of the other main characters is named Karis. She's a Rychillan, so a human, and she's a senior member of the local town guard. And she's very strict, very cold, very by the book. She does not really approve of Yetherim's methods or the way that he works, but she will work with him in order to bring justice and catch the killers and do what's necessary to see the justice is done.
Nice.
Yeah.
Question 4. If your MC has a love interest, what is their dynamic like?
Well, Yetherim does have a love interest. There's another fairy named Charles who he's known since they were younglings, and their dynamic is pretty much they're very much in love and they very much care for each other, but they haven't cottoned on yet. So they'll do things like they'll be comforting each other, looking out for each other, that sort of thing, and they just think that's what friends do. Like they're casually intimate with each other. Like there's one scene at the start of Flames of Doubt where Charles is a bit upset, and so Yetherim strokes her wings to help calm her down, and that's a sort of intimate gesture between fairies. So so they're just sort of they're in love without realizing it.
Oh, nice. Question 5. Who, despite the love interest, is closest to your MC? What is their dynamic like?
Well, I'd have to say Nalia. She's another fairy, but so Yetherim and Charles, they're both forest fairies. They grew up and lived in the forest. Nalia is a town fairy who grew up in the town of Alkentoft, which is where most of my stories take place. And she met Yetherim on one of his visits there. But basically, she's like the sister that Yetherim never had. So she takes a keen interest in his cases. She helps him out where she can. She's kind of like the Watson to his Sherlock, if that makes sense.
Oh, nice.
Yep, and she's sort of using him a bit as well because she finds her life dull and boring. So she's kind of living vicariously a bit through his cases and investigations too. At least that's where she is at the start of her development. So we'll see her grow a bit as well.
Nice. Oh, we have somebody here in the comments. Hi, so glad you could join us.
Hello.
Okay. So question 6. What's your world like? Is it similar to our world? Is it different? How so?
Well, I've taken some elements from our own world, but I'd say it's more different than the same. So the Kingdom of Rychilla, and specifically the town of Alkentoft, is where most of the stories take place. So as you may have already gathered, the main difference is that it's populated by both fairies and humans. And magic and there's magic as well, and it's all elemental. There's 5 elements. There's air, ground, water, fire, and flora, and this actually forms the basis of their technology as well. Like the most of the technology is either clockwork or steam powered, and the steam engines actually run off water kind and fire kind magic together. Now, the water kind produces the magic and the fire kind heats it up, as opposed to, say, how coal and water are used in actual steam engines in our world. What else? Another small difference, and this is just a little detail, is that their days are 28 hours instead of 24 hours.
Oh,
It's my
interesting.
it's my favorite number, so I figured I'd work it in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never heard of anything like that. I like that. More time to do what you need to do in the day.
Exactly. It also means that midday is kind of 1400 hours instead of 1200 hours. So that takes a bit of adjustment in the writing as well.
Oh yeah, I bet. Question 7. If you write fantasy, what's your magic system?
Well, it's all based around elemental magic, and the main reason for that is that I actually needed a system of magic which would leave clues behind. So, for example, if you find a body and they've been, say, burnt to death, then you're looking for somebody who has fire elemental magic.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's the 5 elements: fire, air, water, ground, and flora, and it's each person, including between fairies and humans, each person only usually has one element. For fairies, they have a natural element, which is the one they take on the appearance of. And for humans, it's kind of bestowed on them when they reach the age of 12 or 13. And there are some slight differences with how it works. Hang on. And the magic for each element comes from crystals, which are essentially just batteries for the magic, and they're color coded for each element as well. The humans need to have the crystals actually in contact with their skin in order to be able to draw on the energy within them. And fairies just have to have it sort of in close proximity. So their clothing and jewelry is designed to sort of provide that sort of contact as needed.
Oh.
Yep. And the other thing is that some people actually are able to use the magic of two elements, and they're known as dual kinds. And that's normally people who've studied the second element. And it's a bit harder for them to use it than to use the first one. And it's usually like mages and other teachers of magic who are dual kinds.
Nice.
Yep. And there's also and in order to use magic in things like engines and other applications like water pumping, that sort of thing, there are also runes as well, which are fundamentally like they're essentially like a programming language, albeit engraved in panels of like stone or wood or whatever.
Interesting. Question 8. Do you like to write major plot twists?
Well, yes, it's one of the main things I enjoy writing about murder mysteries. There's the reveal scene, which is fun to write, but what I also enjoy is sort of setting up all of the other bits beforehand that lead to the plot twist, the bits that sort of when you read the book again, you can think, I see where that's going.
Oh yeah.
And also the plotting out of it is kind of fun because it's like a puzzle and you have to sort of put all the pieces in place.
Yeah. Interesting. I like how magic exists alongside technology. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to do was to avoid the sort of medieval Europe type fantasy, and I thought giving them a bit more advanced technology was one way to sort of do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Question 9. What tropes are in your WIP?
Okay, so for Flames of Doubt, the rule of threes is the first one that springs to mind. There are 3 candidates and one of them gets killed. And there's another example which would be a bit of a spoiler, but all I'll say about that is that in murder mysteries, there's usually more than one murder.
Yeah.
And in A Pinch of Distrust, there's a title drop in one of the, I think about chapter 8 or 9, where Yeatherum, he enjoys cooking as a hobby. And so he uses some culinary language in his thoughts and in his dialogue and all that. And so when he's talking to one of the other characters, he describes his cynical attitude as taking things with a pinch of distrust. And I've also, in A Pinch of Distrust, with the character of Tenora, she's another one of my core characters. She's a human and she's a arch mechanic. So she's a mechanic who's in charge of a workshop. And with her, I've deliberately inverted the beauty is never tarnished trope, where she starts out with a bit of grease and grime on her hands and face because she's a mechanic, and by the end of A Pinch of Distrust, she's had a couple of wounds, she's got a bit of blood, and she's got an improvised bandage on her ear. And eventually, in one of the other books I have planned, we will see her kind of cleaned up nicely, and at that point, her girlfriend won't recognize it because it's not what she's used to seeing.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Medieval set fantasy is a little overdone.
That was my thoughts on the matter as well. So
I've never actually read a medieval set fantasy, I don't think.
Yeah. Sort of, like Merlin, for instance, is one that springs to mind. That's, with the kings and castles and all that.
Nice. Question 10. What themes are in your WIP?
Well, the main one in Flames of Doubt is sort of finding one's purpose in one's career. So I'll have to give you a bit of Yeatherum's backstory here. Prior to the events of A Pinch of Distrust, he was a forest protector, so basically the fairy forest police. They patrol the forest looking for poachers, that sort of thing. And he, 8 months before A Pinch of Distrust starts, he encountered 2 humans who were trespassing. They attacked him and left him for dead. They left him with about 9 scars on his body, a hole cut in one of his wings, and several scars on his soul as well. So after that, he couldn't really serve as a forest protector anymore. So now, at the start of Flames of Doubt, he's found the people who attacked him, and now he's trying to figure out what next. Like, the book literally starts with him, with Nalia asking him what next, and he doesn't know how to answer. So the main theme there, and the theme that runs through to the third book as well, is him sort of finding his purpose, finding his career, and sort of coming up with the idea of becoming a private investigator.
Nice.
Yeah. And another theme that seems to come through in my books, although this is more of an unintentional one, is food. Like, Ethereum uses it as a hobby. Sort of, he finds cooking helps him relax. And his culinary knowledge has actually helped him in both books. In A Pinch of Distrust, he's able to bust a suspect's alibi because the suspect claims to have eaten a meal with a particular ingredient in it, which causes stomachache in humans, and he wasn't showing that stomachache. And in Flames of Doubt, Ethereum's actually able to pose undercover as a caterer and provide the food. So...
nice. Yeah, very nice. Robin has a question. What books or other pieces of media inspired your book? Which is actually similar to my next question, which was, what was your inspiration for your WIP? So
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, there's it's double-threaded inspiration, I suppose, because I'm combining fantasy and murder mystery. And on the murder mystery side, I grew up reading the works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, so Sherlock Holmes, and Agatha Christie, mostly Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. So those are my inspirations there, and I'm sort of going for that sort of feel in terms of the murder mystery plot. And on the fantasy side, I've actually been inspired more by the Legend of the video games, and in particular the Legend of Zelda series, because I've been playing those since I was in primary school when I started out with Link's Awakening on the original Game Boy. So yeah, that's my main inspiration there. However, having said that, that fantasy is a little bit looser. As I've said earlier, I wanted to avoid the sort of medieval Europe traditional fantasy setting. So the forest and the general environment of Rychilla are actually based on the sort of the rainforests, the subtropical rainforests of southeast Queensland. And there's a particular national park called Lamington National Park where I used to go for holidays with my family when I was a kid. And we used to do bushwalking through the trails, on the trails through the forest and all that. And that's sort of where the inspiration for the forests came from. And that sort of Australian influence has continued into the architecture of the world as well, in that it can be sort of best described as colonial Australian. But, corrugated iron roofs, iron and brick and sandstone construction, that sort of thing.
Nice.
Yeah. And also, as I
what inspired you to combine fantasy with mystery?
Well, that one again. This is okay. I'll try and give you the short version of this. But basically, I originally started out just writing plain. I've been working on this one way or another for about maybe 10, 15 years. But I originally started out writing just mystery stories as I think they're originally about an Australian private eye in Los Angeles or something. But I wanted to do something that would sort of stand out a bit and that would allow me to sort of play around a bit and be a bit more flexible. And so I was brainstorming it, and I sort of decided, why not combine it with another genre like fantasy or sci-fi? And I eventually settled on fantasy as well. My day job is in IT support, and so I kind of write as a means of escaping. So I didn't want to sort of, write in a sci-fi setting where it's all high tech and all that. So with that done, I sort of started playing around, and it sort of resonated with me, and I went from there, I guess.
Nice. And she asked, and since you said Zelda inspired you, have you played Tears of the Kingdom? Would you recommend it?
Yes, I have been playing Tears of the Kingdom. I would recommend it. It's a lot of fun to play. And some of the stuff I've seen people doing with the building aspect of it is pretty interesting as well.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a fun game.
Question 12. Are you a plotter, pantser, or somewhere in between? If your WIP is a part of a series, how much do you have mapped out for it?
Well, as a murder mystery writer, I do find it best if plotting works out. I'll usually start with, who the murderer is, how they get revealed, and then sort of work backwards from there, figuring out which clues I need to which clues I need to set up, that sort of thing. But having said that, so I have the major plot points set out, but there's a bit of flexibility in that in how the characters get from plot point to plot point. Like I'm happy to sort of go off the rails a little bit as long as the actual overall story remains intact. As far as the series goes, as I mentioned earlier, each book is a single whodunit. So there's no sort of like you should be able to pick up any book in the series, read it cover to cover, and get a full case from body being discovered, investigation being found, setbacks, and then the reveal at the end of the arrest of the murderer. But there will also be sort of character development and some subplots running through them as well. Like the first 3 books in the series form a loose trilogy where we see Aetherium going from a bitter, snarky, cynical former forest protector through to a private investigator. And as for the series itself, well, after Flames of Doubt, which is book 2, I've got another 10 planned out in varying degrees of detail, and about vague ideas for about another half dozen or so after that. So it's going to keep me going for some time.
Yeah. Nice. Question 13. Who's your favorite character to write in your WAP? If it's your MC, then who's the second?
Well, aside from Aetherium, I'd have to say Tenora. She's got a good sense of responsibility and a good knowledge of her trade, and she's the type of person who'll sort of drop what she's doing in order to help out somebody in need. In fact, that's her entrance in A Pinch of Distrust. She sees this car running away and chases after it in her car to sort of rescue the people who are trapped aboard it. And it also, because she's a mechanic, it means that I can also write about the technology, the steam engines, and all that in detail as well, because that's her area of expertise.
Nice.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I grew up on Thomas the Tank Engine, so yeah, that has a bit of a interest for me as well.
Cool. Question 14. What's the dynamic like between your MC and villain? If it's not a fantasy, then the main character toward your MC.
Well, the dynamic is kind of one-sided because as they're murder mysteries, it's a different villain in each story, and well, the murderer knows who they are, but the MC doesn't. So the murderer's got that advantage in that he knows who the MC is. He knows that Aetherium or Karis or whoever the main character for the story is investigating him, and he can sort of put up roadblocks, or he or she, sorry, can put up roadblocks, can sort of stonewall them, that sort of thing. Whereas the main character has got the sort of ignorant, their lack of knowledge working against them.
Yeah.
Yep. And in some cases, like in both of the first 2 books, actually, the murderer actually appears to be an ally of the MC at first, but they're really kind of sort of trying to shuffle them off in the wrong direction.
Interesting. Yeah. Question 15. With that being too spoilery, what was your favorite scene to write in your WIP so far?
Well, there's a scene at the start of Flames of Doubt, which I think I mentioned earlier, where Aetherium is comforting his love interest, Charles. And it's just after everything that's happened in the book so far, with him getting the job offer and getting involved in fairy politics and all that, it's just a nice quiet scene where we see the 2 of them just having a moment together, and it really shows off their relationship and that sort of that love they have between them. It's just a really nice character moment.
Nice. Question 16. If you're writing a series, do you like ending on cliffhangers? Do you plan to end on a cliffhanger in your current WIP?
Well, I try to end chapters with cliffhangers to keep the reader reading.
Yeah.
But given that I'm sort of going for the murder of the week approach, I can't really end the plot on cliffhangers because because everything. But having said that, though, for character development and subplots, that sort of thing, I may very well end on cliffhangers. Like for instance, Flames of Doubt. So by the end of it, Aetherium's assessed the candidates, he's found the murderer, and now he's out of a job again. So he's back on that cliffhanger of, okay, what can I do now? So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Question 17. What's a scene you want to write in your WIP that you're excited for that you haven't gotten to yet?
Well, all of Flames of Doubt has been written. I'm kind of in the editing process, going over with pens and all that. But the scene that I'm most looking forward to revisiting is the scene, not the climax, but immediately before the climax, where all the investigators know who the murderer is, and Theron's trying to sort of flush them out, trying to get them to show their hand so that he can be absolutely certain that he's basically trying to sort of lean on their guilt to get them to make a mistake, so that they can confirm the case and arrest him. So and it's a really tense scene where you've got the murderer trying to do what they're doing, and everyone's watching, and it's just fun to
Nice.
write, or fun to revisit.
Sounds suspenseful.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Question 18. What's your favorite thing to write about? What's your favorite thing to write about? A certain type of scene, like fight scenes or romantic scenes, and so on.
Yeah, well, I'd have to say probably the reveal scenes where the case is laid bare for the audience, mainly because I think, as I mentioned earlier, because there's a certain satisfaction in seeing everything sort of fall into place that I've set up through the story.
Nice.
And there's actually I actually use at a few points smaller versions of the reveal scenes, which I call deduction spots, where Theron sort of closes his eyes, thinks back about what he's just thought, and is able what he's just seen, and he's able to sort of draw some conclusions from that. So that's the deduction scenes, and sort of and it also helps me keep the story on track as well, as far as the main plot goes as well.
Nice. Sounds fun. Question 19. What do you love most about your WIP and the series overall?
Yep. Well, I think part of it is, the main thing in Flames of Doubt is that, the this time it's personal trope. I've seen in TV series that's usually used like in season finale or a during a special event or something. But here, my series actually starts out with that. Theron has had this thing, his attackers, his attackers running free. He's had the hanging over him for 8 months, and he finds them in the first book. And then we've got a question of, well, you've got what you wanted. You found the people who attacked you. What happens now? And I don't think we see that often in media. Like most of the movies, about like revenge or getting justice or whatever, it ends with the revenge or the justice being delivered. So it's basically seeing Theron sort of rebuilding himself. And so there's that. And in a more general sense, I guess I like sort of playing around and writing in this world that I've created. And because it's, I got my start in writing fan fiction. It's mostly with Doctor Who. So I was, playing around in other people's worlds, other people's characters. And now I actually get to sort of work with my own. And there's a certain satisfaction from something that you've built yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And also sorry. Sorry. You go.
No, I was just going to say the last question. You can finish what you were saying.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, I also like seeing my characters sort of interact with each other and sort of develop on the page as well, because these are people that I just pulled out of my imagination, and now they're here, sort of, coming to life. So, yeah.
Question 20. What are you most excited for readers to read once this is published?
Well, again, I'd have to say the reveal scenes, because I want to sort of give the readers an aha moment where everything that's sort of laid out through the book kind of comes into place.
Yeah.
And then on a second or third read through, that's a bit more rewarding as well, because they can actually say, I know where that's going now.
Yeah.
And also some of the action scenes, like A Pinch of Distrust. Tenora's plotline actually starts out with a car chase. She's chasing down a runaway car where the engine's malfunctioning and can't be turned off. And that was fun to write, just thinking of just visualizing it and seeing it play out. So
yeah, nice. Well, that was the last question. So I'm glad you were able to join me today.
Well, thank you for having me on as well. I appreciate it.
Of course. So yeah, your book sounds really interesting. Good luck with the sequel and the remaining books in the series you have.
Thank you.
So I will. So thank you for everyone who came. I have Daniel's Amazon author page, the link to it in the description, so you guys can check it out. If this sounds like something you want to read, I suggest checking it out because it does sound interesting. And thank you all for joining. So until next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.